This is the Wealth Junkie Show. Brought to you by CEO Capital Partners, Brendan Dukeman and Will Harvey. Your hosts deliver the daily fix you're looking for with exciting wealth-building secrets and strategies for what's working today. Listen to real-life stories straight from the mouths of some of the hottest, most successful entrepreneurs and financial freedom seekers to fuel your success addiction.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Brendan Dukeman here with Will Harvey, and this is the Daily Wealth Junkies Show. We've got a great show in store for you. But before we start, be sure to subscribe to the show so that way you won't miss any of the daily shows. And be sure to follow us on Facebook. Later in the show, we'll give you the link to the Facebook, so keep listening for that. I'm going to turn it over to Will. Will's going to introduce our guest here. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Really appreciate it. So today we have a really exciting episode for you guys. So we have Martin Ochwat on, and he is a growth marketer and serial entrepreneur. He's built several seven-figure e-commerce businesses from the ground up, and he's working on a zero plastic waste company called Moop. So that's really cool. Martin previously worked in Silicon Valley for a leading gaming company. There, he helped manage an aggressive over $100 million annual Facebook ad budget, and he also holds a patent in predictive modeling related to ad buying. After leaving the corporate world, he traveled to 30 countries in over 2 years, and he advises business leaders and enjoys helping people in all aspects of digital marketing and e-commerce. So with that, Martin, why don't you give the listeners a little bit of your background and story, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks for the intro, Will.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as mentioned, I'm essentially a digital marketer, have a 5 years experience in both gaming and e-commerce. Started out at MachineZone in Silicon Valley, which at the time when we were spending $100 million a year on Facebook ads, we were one of the largest ad buyers in the world. And through there, I was able to learn the ropes, really understand how do you sell products online through ads, and that inspired me a bit to start working on my own e-commerce business. At the time, it started at zero as just myself. And within a few months, I was making essentially more profit than I would make in an annual year at MachineZone. So I ended up quitting my job. And at the time, spent 2 years traveling the world while launching several stores, meeting a bunch of really cool digital nomads, and just really getting to understand the space even more as a solo entrepreneur. And so now I'm back from traveling and working on a new zero waste store where essentially we're trying to create products that are good for people and good for the planet.
That is quite
Awesome.
the resume there. So why don't we unpack that a little bit? So after high school, college, where did you go from there, and what led you into everything that you did and getting hired at that company?
Sure. So it was a bit of a roller coaster initially. After graduating college, I launched an app business with two friends. So we were making an app for dentists that essentially helped to fix cavities with the assistance of an iPhone. And at the time it was going well, but a few months in, we got into some legal troubles with a competitor. We ended up getting sued, and during the lawsuit, essentially ran out of money and had to go find jobs.
Ouch.
So, I mean, it happens as an entrepreneur. Yeah. There's always ups and downs. So after that, of course, I needed to get a job. I had a friend, Tony, in San Francisco. He said, "Hey, why don't you come down? I work at a gaming company you've probably never heard of, but it's going to be a great time." And so I moved down there and just started working in gaming.
Okay. What time frame was this?
So this was in 2014.
14. Okay. Got it. Okay. So you started there, and what were you doing in gaming? I grew up as a video game nerd and doing all of that. So yeah.
Yeah. So I was a gamer myself, mostly on desktop. Here we were working mostly on mobile games. So at the time, one of our biggest hits was Game of War. You may have seen our ads. They had like Kate Upton. We had another game with Arnold Schwarzenegger going at the time. And yeah, I went there knowing very little about running ads to essentially getting thrown into the fire. Myself and my boss just spending close to $100 million a year. So I really had to learn the ropes, working like crazy hours, even time on weekends. really learning the ins and outs of how does Facebook ads work, how do other digital online channels work, and how can you really acquire users that are paying money for your product through all these channels. So it was really a great learning experience. Like over those 2 years I was there, I met a ton of really smart people, really got to understand the digital landscape, and that was kind of my launching pad into running my own digital business afterwards.
Got it.
Very cool. So Martin, can you talk a little bit about, the strategies you guys use on the Facebook ads? I think using social media is an extremely important part in today's business world. And I think some people lack, utilizing Facebook and all the other social medias to grow their business. So can you talk a little bit about, how you learn to use social media to help grow your businesses?
Yeah, definitely. So with Facebook, it's really important to first try and understand your audience. Every business will be different, right? In our case for gaming, we had a pretty broad audience. Basically, anyone with a phone that's into games could play our game. But we had a few core audiences that were really more passionate than others. So you might try to find those pockets, right? They might be higher income people. In our case, a lot of people that say might be unemployed actually spend more time gaming. So that's another pocket you look for. But whatever your business is, you try to find those audiences. And once you do, the second piece is trying to find creative or like images, videos that resonate with that audience, right? So a lot of it's testing out different images, right? You might show an image of just gameplay, or you might show an image of like an influencer holding the game and playing it. And then you might do the same with video. We'd run, say, a video with Kate Upton playing Game of War, and you'd run just a regular video of like kids or CGI characters playing the game. So I think a lot of it starting out is just testing. And once you can really learn your audience and what resonates with them, then you have a good base for running your ads online.
Awesome. You basically learned all of that at this company. And then you were thinking, well, why don't I just do this for myself and start my own business? Is that kind of what happened there, and what ultimately led you to leave that?
Yeah. So I had a friend at the time. He started his own business on Shopify selling watches, and I was helping him out a bit. I realized that most of their traffic just came from Facebook ads, and it kind of inspired me. I'm like, I run Facebook ads all day for this gaming company. Why don't I try running them for myself? So at that point, I just had to find like what product should I sell. By doing a little bit of tinkering, like I read a lot of blog posts online, case studies, just trying to see what works. And by, trying to test out different products and figuring out what actually sells. So let's say, for example, I want to sell a watch, right? I need to first, again, find who's my audience for the watch. Usually it's females. And even for men's watches, a lot of females buy watches for men as gifts. And then the second piece is what kind of creative resonates with them in the watch space. If you've ever seen ads from companies like Movement, for example, they're really aspirational product shots. Maybe someone's out in like hiking in an interesting place, or they're wearing like a nice business suit. So that's the creative, and you found the audience. And essentially I put those two together, started running ads, and I found a few products that started resonating with the audience.
Oh, so I mean, it sounds like a science, more than an art for the advertising. Is that kind of what you've seen? I mean, you really got to study, what your audience likes and things like that. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd say it's a bit of both. You definitely need creativity in trying to think of your audience, and also the ads. Like some of the most incredible ads I've seen are very creative, but I think when it comes to digital marketing, it's really a combination of like the soft skills, understanding your customer, but also some analytic skills of trying to dig deep through the numbers or through the data sets. And if you can combine those two, you have a really good base to be running ads or acquiring users online.
Right. And are you getting your analytics from Facebook itself, or, from the ads? Talk a little bit about, how you break down those analytics when you receive them and where you receive them from.
Sure. So these days, it's actually a great time. A lot of the online ad platforms are really advanced. They have great analytics. Let's say you're running Facebook ads. They have their own analytics tool online. You can hook up, your website or your app, and they'll tell you everything about how many visitors you have. Let's say you have 1,000 visitors. They'll tell you of those 1,000 visitors, maybe 100 clicked on your product and then 50 added to cart, maybe 20 made a purchase, right? So all these analytics are easily available for you in a dashboard. The other great tool I usually use is Google Analytics. For most website owners, if you don't already, I highly recommend to hook it up to your website. It usually takes 5 to 10 minutes to get started. And Google just gives away a free wealth of incredible data you can use to measure, how are people performing on your website, and also how are your ads performing.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. So, when you started this company, and because before we started the podcast, we were talking about your cushy job, and it was a high paying job. I think a lot of people struggle with that because, and even if they don't have a high paying job, they struggle really taking that leap of faith and going out fully into the entrepreneurial space where they don't have a steady paycheck and they don't have a security blanket from that. So can you talk a little bit about your mindset and just what you did to prepare for that and how you ultimately did it?
For sure. So I was actually inspired by Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. I was reading it at the time and thinking, yeah, incredible book. I was thinking, okay, how can I, live a life where I get to travel, which is something I've been wanting to do since I was a kid, while also making money. So I think the book started out putting me in a great mindset. If you're not into reading, it could be meeting other entrepreneurs or people like a few years ahead of where you want to be. That's a great way to get inspired. And then I think the second thing is, if you are in a cushy job, like you said, it is risky to give it all away. You might not have a huge savings to live off of for long, but the good news is you can start working on your business or side project in the evenings and weekends. And that's how I started. That's how many people I know started. And it really takes a lot of risk off the table. You might not be able to dedicate, like 8 or 10 hours a day, but even if it's just 4 or 5 hours in the evening, you can get started. And once you start seeing some traction, whether that's users coming in, revenue coming in, eventually as you see that grow, you'll reach a tipping point where it just doesn't make sense to do your day job anymore. In my case, I was earning as much as my day job, and all my friends are telling me, like, why are you still working here? Yeah, you're making the same amount working like 3 hours a day at home versus 10 hours at the office. So that was kind of the turning point for me. But I think it's a similar model I've seen work for others, and it can definitely work for you too.
Got it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
really good.
So, going back a little bit to the digital marketing, where do you see the digital marketing going in the future?
That's definitely a loaded question. The thing that with digital marketing is it's always changing and it's always fast paced. What worked for me a few years ago might not be working anymore today. So at the time when I was at MachineZone and after I left, Facebook ads were really hot. And one of the reasons for that was the ad cost of acquiring a user online was still really cheap. Not a ton of people were running Facebook ads. So you could get users like very easily. If you look today in 2019, a lot of these channels like Facebook and Google ads are now saturated. It doesn't mean you can't make money using Facebook, but it's a lot more difficult than it was when I started. So I think a great way to look at like trends is try to see where do you see things going in 5 or 10 years. So if you're starting today, one popular channel might be podcasts. Right? Like you guys are starting a podcast here. It's still fairly new in this space. It hasn't been like huge or that popular for very long, but in 5 or 10 years, podcasts could essentially replace like radio or a lot of TV talk shows.
Right.
Or like TikTok, similarly is a new social media channel. It's still really young and used by like teens, but maybe in 5 or 10 years, all of us will be on TikTok. So I think if you really try to follow the trends and get onto a new channel early, you have a much better chance of succeeding and doing well in marketing.
Yeah, that's so. The early adopters are always the ones that have the most success, right?
Yeah, and you're looking back, and why didn't I have that idea? But
right. Yeah.
So Martin, talk to us a little bit about your zero plastic waste company that you've got going on right now. It sounds pretty interesting.
For sure. So we're starting a new company called Moop. We're launching in February 2020, and essentially we're trying to turn sustainability on its head. A lot of people we've talked to think that they want to be sustainable, but it seems like a lot of work. It seems the products are expensive, and they might not actually work all the time. So we're doing products that are the opposite. Think of everyday essentials you might use, like a toothpaste, shampoo, or deodorant that normally you throw out into the garbage. Well, we make them without any plastic packaging, and our products are affordable. You can use them for less than $10 a month. They actually work. We've tested every other competitor on the market, and our products almost all the time exceed the competitors by a huge margin. And they're easy to use. You don't have to change your lifestyle. So if you're used to using regular deodorant in a plastic tube, you can try ours in a biodegradable cardboard container.
Very cool.
Interesting.
So how'd you guys come up with this idea? What inspired you to go the non-plastic route?
Yeah, so I think we were initially inspired a bit through traveling. I've been in a lot of great places. For example, in the Philippines, there's beautiful islands in an area called El Nido. We've been a lot in South America. One thing that sort of bothered me the whole time is how much trash there was in the oceans and also just in our day-to-day lives. And at one point when I was going through Europe, I noticed in Europe, they're actually way farther ahead of us in North America in terms of sustainability and the environment. And a lot of these stores started popping up selling, plastic-free goods or more sustainable products that are eco-friendly. And we thought, okay, this has to be the future. Like if we don't, clean up our mess with trash, there isn't going to be much of a future for the earth. Why don't we take a lot of these products we're inspired by, bring them to North America, which is still, one of the largest, if not the largest e-commerce market in the world, and just share it with other people. So I felt it was really a great way for us to connect our experiences and also sell something that's good for both people and the planet, and basically try to make a difference.
That's really cool. And not to get, not to focus on the business side of things, but that's really, really easy for people to buy into because there's such a heavy focus on being eco-friendly and sustainability and all that stuff. So you're really kind of satisfying the younger crowd. A lot of people that I see are the millennial crowd coming up, and they're the next consumers, really, really dominating everything. And you're really catering to them, which is cool. So that's awesome.
So Martin, are you guys going to be predominantly selling online and just kind of using your experience with the Facebook ads to get the word out there, or what's your strategy with that?
Yeah, good question. So starting out, yes, we will be online. The great thing with launching an e-commerce or a lot of businesses on the internet is you can get started very quickly. You don't need to open, a lot of money and open like a physical retail store. Online also lets you iterate on your business fast too, right? So you could try different landing pages on your website. You could test different messages, or even like with Facebook ads, try targeting a lot of different audiences. In our case, we're going to rely a little less on Facebook starting out. Our strategy is more based around influencers and PR, try to build, more sustainable, organic channels of acquiring users, and eventually we'll sprinkle in some of those Facebook ads in the future.
All right. Sounds like a great strategy.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, Brandon, I think we're at the time for the moments of truth.
Yeah, Martin, this is a segment we like to call Moments of Truth. It's the 7 same questions that we're going to ask all of our guests here. You should know some of the answers to them. Some of them might make you think a little bit, but I'll start it off here. Martin, who's your success role model?
So I'm really a fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. I know a lot of people talk about him, but I actually think he's great for not the reasons you may think of. So the thing I love about him is he's essentially his own influencer promoting content and his agency. But in Gary's case, he's not actually selling products to his direct audience. So let's say he's maybe like inspiring people to start businesses. He's not selling products to me, who he's trying to inspire, but he's leveraging his audience to sell products to other people. So this lets him be genuine, test a lot of content, give away a lot of free value while still being able to monetize. So I think just the way he does that is really clever, and he's always on top of the latest marketing channels.
Yeah.
I agree. He's one of my favorites too. He's aggressive, and he tells you how it is. So I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Next question is, what's your biggest success?
I'd say my biggest success right now has been, as mentioned before, leaving my 6-figure job in Silicon Valley, taking a chance to start e-commerce business, bootstrapping it from 0 to 7 figures revenue a year, and really getting to travel. Been to over 30 countries in the last 2 years, so I'm really excited about that.
What was your favorite? This is a tangent question, but what was your favorite country that you traveled to?
It's always a hard question. There's so many good countries. I really love Argentina. I think the food, the steak, the wine is amazing down there. It's really European vibe, but it just feels like a very special place. It's really kind of far away from everywhere else, but you have really great people and really great lifestyle. So definitely check it out.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd definitely be on the list. Martin, what's your biggest failure?
I've had many failures. I think what hurt the most was when we were launching our dental app right after university. It was going well. We ended up getting into a lawsuit. Funny side story, I had to, it was either moving into my parents' house again or living in a bunk bed with a few other entrepreneurs. So I shared a room with 3 entrepreneurs at the time. We really tried to grind it out, but it didn't work. That's just how business is. So, I've moved on since then, but definitely that's one of my worst experiences.
Lots of education through that though, right?
Definitely a lot to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what's your favorite quote?
One quote I really like is, it's by Sun Tzu: "In the midst of chaos, there is always opportunity." And so what I like about this quote is, as an entrepreneur, like you probably know, it's always very difficult. Things are very uncertain. There's not like a defined path of where to go, but that's kind of where you can really create value and start new things that others haven't before. It's kind of, it also relates to taking the unbeaten path of trying to do something different yourself that others might not be doing. So I really like that quote.
I love that.
Martin, what are some of your hobbies outside of being an entrepreneur? And I know you said you like traveling a little bit. What else do you like to do?
Sure. So I love mountain biking and swimming. I've been mountain biking since a kid. Used to race in high school. Swimming just
Nice.
a great way to de-stress. And also just love having a good meal out. A great restaurant with friends, family, or just my girlfriend. That's
Awesome.
what I like to do.
Awesome. Okay. What's the best business book you've read?
So the best business book I've read in a while is Never Split the Difference by Christopher Voss. Yeah, so it's really, if anyone doesn't know, it's written by a former hostage negotiator that worked for the FBI. And he would negotiate with like tons of people, whether it's criminals or terrorists, for essentially setting people free. And he really uses those lessons he learns there to apply them to business and life. For example, one tactic he talks about is anticipating negative things people might say about you or your product. So let's say, I'm a consulting business and I'm selling my services. People might say, well, it's very expensive. So you can use one of his tactics of saying up front, like, we know we're not the cheapest firm, but here is why we provide value. And by anticipating that negative, it puts people at ease, and it builds more trust so that you can have a more successful negotiation.
That's really good. I actually read that book recently too and loved it. I'm going to jump out on a quick tangent here. I had a real life scenario where right after I read it, Did you
get kidnapped?
No, I didn't get kidnapped, luckily, but no. So I was buying this house that I ended up flipping, and the seller that I was negotiating with, I threw out an offer and she countered higher, and I probably would have just split the difference in the past. But after reading the book, I used some of the tactics on how am I supposed to, he always says, ask the person, how am I supposed to do that? How can I, and kind of show them that. and it ended up working, and we got the price that I originally threw out. So it was pretty cool. So
Nice. That's a great win.
yeah, exactly. So Brandon.
All right, Martin, last question here. If there's one key piece of advice you could give our listeners or aspiring entrepreneur about achieving success, what would it be?
Yeah, so I think the last thing I want to leave you with is no matter what you're doing today, it's good to try and look outside of that and try to think about the long term, right? So whether it's positioning your career, positioning your business, like I said, a lot of people that are most successful, they'll hop onto trends early. And so you want to be thinking, what is going to be big in your industry in 5, 10, 15 years? And at that point, most of us are still fairly young. That will probably be the peak of our careers anyway. So if you can position yourself to do really well in the long run, I think that's the best way you can grow yourself and your business.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, that wraps up the Moments of Truth. Martin, what are some wants and needs that you have for your business?
Wants and needs. We definitely want to grow, and we're looking for more new users. So if you want to support us in the pre-launch, check out getmoop.com. You can sign up for our pre-launch there. Otherwise, I just want to help people out. So I give out some free marketing tips and advice on martinochwat.com. You can check me out there too. And yeah, I'm just happy to be part of the community.
Awesome. And is that how people can get in touch with you as well?
Yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me. You can find me on social or check out my website, martinochwat.com.
Awesome. Well, that wraps things up, guys. I appreciate everybody listening. You've heard some great information here from Martin about digital marketing and social media marketing. Again, feel free to subscribe to our daily podcast show on iTunes or wherever you're listening to. And make sure to join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealthjunkies. There you can connect with us, and we'll have some free information out there for everybody. I appreciate you joining us, Martin, today, and join us tomorrow for another guest.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thanks so much, Martin.
You've been listening to the Daily Wealth Junkie Show, brought to you by CEO Capital Partners. CEO Capital Partners works with business owners and executives to build passive income through multifamily apartment syndications. For more information about how you can invest in quality multifamily real estate assets and build significant streams of passive income, visit us today at ceocapitalpartners.com.